Hi everyone, I'm Luke Hector and this is The Broken Meeple, a show where I rave and rant about board games, but usually more ranting than there is raving. Here we've got another game from Emperor S4, thank you kindly for the copy. This is a Walking In series game, so Walking in Osaka. I think there's been 3 of these so far. I already still have Walking in Burano, at least I think I have, I'll have to double check that. But Walking in Burano is a very solid card game, definitely one to grab if you can. Walking in Province was an interesting idea, you know, taking snapshots of card grids that you'd placed. The problem was that the scoring and some of the iconography was a bit fiddly in that game, so it was a bit of a barrier to entry and easily didn't quite match what Burano was. Well, this is now Walking in Osaka, and I'm keen to jump into this one. This again involves that whole nature of card system where you overlap and tuck cards underneath each other in order to create effectively a little mini map in front of you. But this one is meant to have a little twist in that the scoring is designated by the players. You know, yes, you will build up symbols on your grid and you will score appropriately for different types of symbols, but when they score is driven by the players and what their actions are. It's like, okay, something a little bit different. I always like checking out something new by Emperor S4 because small box games are kind of their wheelhouse, really. It's got 4 strategy, 3 luck, 2 interaction, and 3 weight according to their little 5 chart on the back. 1 to 4 players, 30 minutes, so it should be nice and quick. Let's jump in and see what's what.
Get on with it.
Walking in Osaka is about building up a little photo book of cards in front of you so that you are basically building up a little map of images of different icons that will score in one of 6 different ways as controlled by the players. Players have a little meeple pawn that basically sits around the outside of a 3x3 grid. Each one has a little stepping stone for the meeple to go on. I don't know why they bother with these tiles, honestly, because apart from just signifying what the 3x3 grid is, you really don't need them. But also these location tiles, which have some extra scoring avenues that you can go down. And the idea is that on your turn you can move your meeple 1 or 2 spaces around the edge of this track. So I could move it 2 to here. You then choose a card from the respective row or column that you're in. So I could pick this one. And then you build into your little photo book. Now the photo book has a couple of restrictions. Firstly, it can't be more than 5 cards wide. It can't be more than 4 cards tall, which means that effectively it can be a max of 5 blocks high. A block is basically the card is always split into 2 separate blocks, so 5 blocks is effectively, 5 of those. But when you take the card, you decide which row or column it's going in, and you either cover the top half of the card that was below it if it's going on to a different card, or you tuck the bottom half of the card you've just picked up underneath the top of the card below. So basically, one block is always getting covered one way or the other when you put these cards on. We've seen a few other little card games, I forget their names off the top of my head, but that have used this kind of overlapping and tucking mechanism before. And the idea is that each one of these blocks has symbols on them. There is one banner that corresponds to one of the symbols, the red Tory, for example, but the others are their own unique symbol. And the idea is that these things do not replenish immediately, so if green then takes their go and takes a card, they'll place this one into their photo book, and then another player can come along and take more cards. But as soon as you end up with a situation where an entire row or column is missing, the deck will replenish it with more cards, so we'll get more from here. But at that point, the player who triggered it can decide to move the pawn 1 or 2 spaces. And they have to move it, but they can decide whether to move it 1 or 2. And depending which one they land on, every player in the game scores for that particular icon. So the one I land on here says you get 3 points for every zone, that's like zone of the same background, of 4 or more blocks. Okay, I check to see if I'm going to score a lot for that. If I've got 2 separate blocks of 4, I get 6 points. That's pretty good. So-and-so gets 3, that person gets none, that person gets none. All right, you know what? I'll score for that rather than the Tories. And, as in the building, not the political side of things. And the idea is that players will dictate what is getting scored throughout the game based on their own situation and also what everybody else is doing. During the game, though, you can also pick up these location tiles, which basically say that for a column of 3, 4, or 5 blocks high, if you meet you'll get points for a specific criteria, like the background or the symbols or a flat 5 points. And of course, depending if you're specializing in any particular area, you might want to grab one of those as it goes around. But the only other little thing during the game is that you collect sandals, which allow you to speed up your movement of your meeple or this meeple around the scoring board. And then at some point during the game, you can spend sandals in order to move your bonus marker off this bit of the board here, which gives you a bonus scoring at the end of the game for one of the particular symbols. Or you can leave it there if you're going for diversification. Once the 10th round is done, players will score based on their bonus marker and also score points for the biggest zone that they've got, and then see who's won by looking at the victory point track.
Well, duh.
So nothing too strenuous there, and it is a relatively straightforward game to get into, minus the scoring. The scoring's the one little fiddly bit. The rules themselves are straightforward. You've got a 3x3 grid, you move your meeple around the edge and you take a card and you overlap or tuck. That bit is nice and straightforward, as well as what you do with the sandals and how you move the scoring pawn. But the bit that does sometimes hold it back a little bit, at least for your first couple of games, and certainly maybe for the first game if someone's learning it, is the way that the stuff scores. Now, you do have a reference aid that tells you all the turn summary, tells you the scoring, tells you the restrictions for your photo book, and also, you know, how each bit scores. So granted, they have provided the information to you, but I think it's possibly like a translation thing when we're going from Japanese to English, but some of it is maybe a little bit ambiguous in places. Some of these scorings are easy. I mean, for each visible, I think it's heaven, I've been told that this word is in Japan, but for each visible like heaven banner in the same column, score a point. Okay, that's pretty straightforward to see. But then you got another one here, which is like, for every flower / building on the same row, score a point, and 3+ adjacent things score 3+ points. Okay, what? You know, and there's one or two on here that are maybe just a little bit weird when you read it on the card, and the rulebook explanations are fine, but they are quite small. I mean, you really do have to sort of squint your eye about this quick in order to see exactly what's going on, and I think one or two of them might even have slight errors on them. You know, one of them didn't seem to you know, be 100% clear, and even then the bathhouse in the book mentions each person scores for having 3 or more adjacent of this icon as follows: 3 points for 3 adjacent, 4 points for 4 adjacent, and so on. The reference aid doesn't say that though, so there's little inconsistencies here and there which aren't 100% clear from the reference aid, and it's a little annoyance, but it's not the end of the world. You know, if you read the book and just sort of study it a bit, then you will be fine. It's just, yeah, I think there's maybe a couple of lost in translation issues with making it like super easy to get into. But then I don't think walking in Burano or walking in Province, you know, was overly super easy to get into. So there's going to be elements of that. Production wise though, it is pretty nice. I mean, you get the wooden pieces. I love these cards. These cards are very nice. I mean, I would recommend sleeving them because you're going to handle them a lot. But, you know, the imagery of the buildings and the background, very nice. Looks very pretty on the table. I love the backs. The backs are fantastic. This white sort of textured background, not to the touch, but like the look of it. It looks a bit like some, well, I suppose it looks a bit like some textured wallpaper you could get. But it's white with the Osaka, walking in Osaka, the Japanese name there, big pagoda, and like, you know, cherry blossom trees and stuff, you know. So there's very nice backing to these cards. They do look very nice. Everything else is kind of standard fare, although the scoreboard, granted, you are trying to get it into a box this small, so you have to take some cuts, but this is a little bit small and fiddly to operate because you do have like a scoring marker that goes from 1 to 10, but then you've got this really tiny little disc which is easily lost, which has to do the 10s. And the score pad will think that you can go up to 130 points, possibly even more. Now, it's certainly not too difficult to get at least halfway up this chart. I think 130 is pushing it, but you know, unless you do extremely well. But most scores are definitely going to feature sort of halfway up this track, and so you're constantly trying to count. Right, hang on, I get 12 from here, so that means I've got to go 10, move that up to 8 from here, that, move that one up, and you know, you're balancing a little nudge, and you could nudge the tokens off. It's a little bit annoying. I wish there was an easier way of doing it, like maybe victory point tokens rather than a track, especially one that's got to be this tiny. I do admit that if I could find maybe like an image of a score track that goes up from like 1 to 100 and then print and laminate it and shove it in the box, if I could do that, I would probably rather do that than use this tiny little board. The only problem is that this board also has the bonus scoring on it, so it's not like you can take the board away and replace it with something else. So it's one of those little niggles, but at least it does tell you how to use the sandals, and at least it's easy to see what's going to score. I mean, that's large enough. It's just the actual tracking of the score is a little bit fiddly. You know, then I'm not sure if there's any other way of doing it other than just having victory point tokens and substituting your own. But, you know, when you gotta get stuff into a box this small and make it a cheap price point, you do have to, you know, make some, what's the word? You have to make some compromises, and this is just the one you're gonna have to deal with. But otherwise, it's a decent production and certainly looks the business. I think the gameplay is also pretty solid here, though. I mean, I don't think it's quite up to the level of Walking in Burano, but, you know, Walking in Burano was very good, but it's not certainly not bad at all. I mean, this is definitely better than the Province one. It's kind of sitting somewhere in the middle, because I like the simplicity of like moving it around in that, but there's a decent amount of depth and choices here. You know, do you want to go to a particular location tile? Well, they're dotted around the edge. You have to go to a particular space. Players block each other, so especially in a 4-player game, these spaces get contested quite heavily. The sandals can help with the extra movement, but if somebody's standing on the space, you can't go onto their space, so you're going to have to, you know, deal with that fact. You've got 9 cards here max, but as people take cards, you may find there's less choice. But when you take a card, you're thinking, well, if I go here, I take a card, that card's useful in my photo book, but then hang on, if I take that card, I trigger a scoring. It's not the best card in the world. I could do with a better card, but I trigger the scoring, which means that I could move this thing to the browns and score for my browns, which are pretty good, because I'm pretty betting that nobody else is going to score browns because I score the most for them. They'll probably go to that one and then skip that. So yeah, maybe I want to do that. And this is a cool little twist. You know, you're thinking about the location tile, you're thinking about the card itself, but you're also thinking about whether you will trigger scoring or whether someone else will trigger scoring. Because you could have a situation where I take this card here in the corner, knowing that red is about to take their turn. It's like, well, that means red's probably going to take that card and trigger scoring. What's red want? No, red wants the bathhouses. Oh, wait, the pawn's literally 2 spaces away from the bathhouse. I'm basically just giving them a bunch of points, and I'm doing very well on that. So maybe I don't want to give them an opportunity like that. I need to make sure I don't leave them with a column or row with only 1 card in it. And sometimes it's unavoidable, but again, that's just another bit of decision space that you're making. And it's not overwhelming, although it can lead to a little bit of AP at times, you know, with people trying to think, oh, is that card good for me? Where would that go? It would probably go there, but where do I want to go around here? I mean, yes, you can only move so many spaces, even with, you know, but you do have sandals, and the rulebook does not stipulate whether these are limited or unlimited. I think the designer has, well, Empress 4 have told me that there is a rule change that they've put where you're limited to 5 sandals max, and that these are limited. So if you have playing a game and you've got that question, I've asked this on BGG, but I'm saying now, 5 sandals max, these are limited. All right, so again, there's like a little extra currency that you're dealing with. This marker just seems really pointless. I mean, you've got a nice colourful picture on one side, and it tells you to put it face down, and you never flip it back over. It's literally just there to step onto. I think it's just a way that you can easily tell where the 3x3 grid is, but it's not like it's that difficult to plan a 3x3 grid, really. It just seems kind of weird. What I tend to do with these tokens is whenever the location tile gets taken, I flip the other token up. So you can easily not only have that like bit for your meeple to go on, but you can easily tell that that one doesn't have a location tile anymore. That's my way around it, but yeah, it just feels like one extra component that you just didn't really need. You can play this solo, and the solo mode has to be like obtained from the web via a QR code. They've got like a PDF rulebook for it. It's fine. It does away with the sandals and some of the other and these location tiles. Effectively, you have 2 separate meeples for the AI and you yourself. The AI takes 2 turns in a round. You only take 1, so they end up with 20 cards. You end up with like 10 or so plus your starting. And the idea is that you're trying to beat them by a certain score and see how well you did. It's not bad. I mean, it's a way to play this game solo, but it is very swingy because the AI just takes the nearest card and doesn't care what it's going for. It's got one specific rule as to whether it overlaps or tucks. That's it. Other than that, it just plows the cards in. So there's no guarantee if it will build a zone that's particularly big for the end game, and there's no telling what it will score well for. It will have a game where nothing really scores that well, and so it doesn't really matter what it does. It will then have a game where it scores really well for cherry blossoms, and it just happens to score the cherry blossoms twice, and there you go. And because it's getting 2 turns, you're only getting 1, it's very difficult to get the AI to not score. But the scoring is, the way it moves, is done by your starting card. So where's my starting cards? I wanted to find some of those as examples, but basically, some of your starting cards have got numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4 on them. So the idea is that you take 3 of them at the start of the game. You blind draw them. You blind draw 1 for the meeple movement of the AI. Then you choose a card, and then what's left is the other meeple movement. So it's very difficult to stop them scoring, but you can kind of goad them as to their movement to think, well, okay, so red has moved and is already done. That means green is moving. I've got a 2 and a 3 here. If green moves 2, it will do that. If it moves 3, it will do that. I would prefer it to move 3 because that also makes it score and it will move this thing 3 spaces as a result. You know, so you can kind of goad the AI a little bit, but you can't really do much about its card placement. So it's swingy in one aspect and not swingy in another. It's a fine solo mode. I mean, I think the game is better with more players. I think it works particularly well in 3 and 4, where you've got much more tension for these spaces, because in 2-player, there isn't really a lot of tension for the spaces, because the game does not scale with player count. It's literally the same no matter how many players you have. And it probably would have been better if there was something to make the spaces maybe a little bit more tighter in a 2-player setup, but you basically have the same amount of spaces no matter what. 4 is definitely more tense, 2 is more loosey-goosey. So it's 3 and 4, I think, is the sweet spot for this game. I'm not sure I would take it for a 2-player game, because for the most part it's just who built the best photo book, and 3 and 4 certainly does muck around with the scoring a bit more, so I think that's more the sweet spot. But you got the solo mode if you want it. Overall, I do quite enjoy this one. It's a cool, neat, quirky little card game, which is what, you know, Emperor's 4 are pretty good for. You know, their Walking In series is still decent games. I know Walking in Province has problems, but it's still fun. Walking in Burano is still really solid, and I think this one's a really solid one as well. I enjoy it. I'm going to hang on to it, show it to a bunch of people now that I can explain the scoring a bit easier, and that I've got through my initial first reading of the rulebook, which was, you know, huh? How's that work? Or how's that work? Oh, hang on, that's not fully clarified. It's like, you know, once you get past one game of it, you'll be fine. It's just maybe your first game is going to be a bit of a learning curve. But yeah, overall, I quite enjoy it. It's an 8 out of 10 for me. It's a great game. I enjoy it. It's going to sit on the shelf along with what have I got? Hopefully Walking in Burano's still up there, but if not, definitely Hanamakoji's still up there. That's you know, a game I still really enjoy even to this day. But yeah, Emperor's 4 do some quirky little card games, and this is another one of them. So if you like that whole overlap and tucking aspect of the cards, you know, like in certain other games, if you like the idea of player-driven scoring triggers, you know, that is kind of its selling point, you know, then this one could be a good one for you. So that's it for me on this episode of The Broken Meeple. If you like what you see, then please thumb it up on YouTube and thumb it up on Board Game Geek when it goes live on the page. Check out the rest of my SN content. There is a ton to go over and more so besides. And let me know your thoughts below. Which of the Walking In games do you think is the best? Burano Province or this one? And by all means, you know, let me know your thoughts in general about Emperor's 4. So take care. And remember, regardless of whether you can find a use for these street tiles or not, it's still only a game. So bye for now.